The gun was 6 inches from Rosalind Thorne's face when she understood what it meant to choose someone else's life over her own. Smoke filled her lungs. Flames licked at warehouse walls behind her. And in her arms, a 4-year-old girl with tangled curls and terrified eyes clung to her like she was the only solid thing left in a world that had just exploded into chaos. The ceiling groaned, wood splintered. Roz had maybe 10 seconds to decide, run for the exit and save herself, or stay and shield the child from the collapsing beam overhead. She chose the child. She always chose the child. But that moment, that choice, was still 72 hours away. 3 days earlier, Rosalind Thorne's alarm clock screamed at 4:30 in the morning, and she woke to the same nightmare she'd been living for 18 months. Bills scattered across her nightstand, medical invoices in envelopes she couldn't bear to open, a photograph of her sister Meredith taped to the mirror, smiling from before the sickness had hollowed out her cheeks and stolen the light from her eyes. Rose's studio apartment in South Philadelphia was small enough that she could see every corner from her bed. Kitchenette with a sink that dripped, bathroom with tiles cracked sometime in the 90s, windows overlooking an alley where trash cans lined up like soldiers and cats fought over scraps at midnight. She'd lived here for 3 years. It wasn't much, but it was hers until the eviction notice arrived last week. Roz rolled out of bed, body aching from yesterday's double shift. Her reflection in the bathroom mirror showed a 25-year-old woman who looked 30. Dark circles under green eyes, auburn hair that needed washing, shoulders carrying weight they weren't built for. She splashed cold water on her face and got dressed. Jeans, white t-shirt, sneakers with holes in the soles. The uniform of someone who worked 3 jobs and still couldn't make rent. Her phone buzzed. A text from the hospital. Meredith's white blood cell count dropped again. Leukemia progressing faster than expected. We need to discuss transplant timeline urgently. You're still her only compatible donor. Roz sat on the bed's edge and stared at those words until they blurred. $200,000. That's what the bone marrow transplant would cost. $200,000 to save her baby sister's life, the only family she had left. Meredith was 22. She was supposed to be finishing college, falling in love, building a future. Instead, she was dying in a hospital bed while Roz worked herself to exhaustion, trying to scrape together money that might as well have been $1 million. Roz was a compatible donor. Her bone marrow was a perfect match. But bone marrow meant nothing without the surgery, hospital stay, medications, aftercare. It meant nothing without money. And money was the one thing Roz had never had. She deleted the text. Couldn't think about it right now. Had to get to her first job. The morning shift at Sal's Diner on Market Street was brutal. Coffee refills and eggs over easy, and truckers who left dollar tips and called her sweetheart like they were doing her a favor. Roz smiled and said thank you, and pretended she wasn't dying inside. At noon, she clocked out and ran 6 blocks to the coffee shop where she worked the afternoon rush. Lattes and cappuccinos, and customers complaining about almond milk temperature. Roz nodded and apologized and made drinks with trembling hands. At 5, she changed into her third uniform of the day. White button-down shirt, black slacks, black apron. The outfit of a server at Castellanos, the upscale Italian restaurant in Rittenhouse Square, where lawyers and politicians and businessmen paid $40 for pasta and $200 for wine. Roz had worked at Castellanos for 18 months. It was the best paying of her 3 jobs, which wasn't saying much, but the tips were decent, and the manager Giovanni mostly left her alone. Tonight felt different. Giovanni was nervous. She could see it in the way he kept checking his watch, straightening silverware on table 6 3 times in 10 minutes. VIP tonight, he muttered when Roz asked what was wrong. Private dining room. Very important guest. Who? Giovanni gave her a look that said, don't ask questions you don't want answered. Roz had learned not to ask questions at Castellanos. The restaurant had a reputation. Everyone knew it was connected. Mob money had built the place. Mob money kept it running, and mob men came here to conduct business that didn't happen in boardrooms. She'd seen them, men in expensive suits with granite faces, men who spoke in low voices and never raised their hands for the check, men who left cash on the table and walked out like they owned the world. She stayed out of their way, kept her head down, served the food, and collected the tips and went home. That was the plan. That's what she'd been doing for 18 months. But plans Rose had learned were just wishes, dressed up as certainty. At 6:45, three black SUVs pulled up outside Castellanos. Rose was wiping down tables near the front windows when she saw them. The vehicles moved in formation tight and coordinated, the kind of arrival that meant money or power or both. Doors opened. Men in dark suits emerged. They moved like soldiers, scanning the street, checking surroundings. One spoke into his wrist some kind of communication device. Then the center vehicle's back door opened. A man stepped out, tall, maybe 6'2", dark hair touched with silver at the temples, a suit that probably cost more than Rose made in 3 months. He moved with confidence that came from never being told no, and beside him, holding his hand, was a little girl. Rose's breath caught. The child couldn't have been more than 4 years old. Wild curls falling past her shoulders, a navy blue dress with white flowers embroidered along the hem, patent leather shoes clicking against the sidewalk as she walked. But it wasn't the dress or the shoes that made Rose stare. It was the girl's eyes. Even from across the street through the restaurant window, Rose could see them. Wide, hollow, eyes that had seen too much and understood too little. Eyes that looked older than they should. Rose knew those eyes. She'd seen them in the mirror when she was 7 years old, standing in a social worker's office, learning that her parents weren't coming back, that she and Meredith were alone now, that the world was bigger and colder and crueler than she'd ever imagined. The man and the little girl entered the restaurant. Giovanni practically tripped over himself rushing to greet them. He bowed, actually bowed like he was meeting royalty. "Mr. Castellano," Giovanni said, voice pitched high with nerves. "Everything is ready, the private room, just as you requested." Castellano. So this was Vincent Castellano. Rose had heard the name, whispered among staff. The owner's son, the man who ran the family business, the business that had nothing to do with pasta and wine. Vincent Castellano nodded once. Curt, efficient, a man who didn't waste words. But when he looked down at the little girl, his expression softened, just for a moment, just enough for Rose to see something beneath the granite exterior, something that looked almost like tenderness, almost like fear. "Come, Aria," he said quietly. His voice was deep, accented, Italian roots wrapped around American vowels. The girl Aria said nothing. She didn't look up, didn't smile. She just held her father's hand and followed him toward the back of the restaurant, toward the private dining room Giovanni had been fussing over all afternoon. Rose watched them disappear through the doorway. She felt something twist in her chest, recognition maybe, or sympathy. What she knew was that little girl was drowning, and nobody was throwing her a rope. The evening shift moved slowly. Rose served tables, smiled at customers, delivered plates of carbonara and ossobuco and tiramisu, the usual rhythm of a Tuesday night at Castellanos. Except nothing felt usual. Every few minutes, Rose's gaze drifted toward the private dining room. The door was closed. Security guards stood on either side, men who looked like they could break bones without effort. Rose wondered what happened behind that door. What kind of business required armed guards and closed rooms and a 4-year-old girl who looked like she'd forgotten how to be a child? At 8:15, the front windows of Castellanos exploded inward. Glass rained across the dining room like frozen rain. Customers screamed. Someone overturned a table. Wine bottles shattered against floor-red liquid, spreading like blood. And then came the gunfire. Rose dropped to a crouch behind the bar, Her ears rang from the first shot, loud and impossibly close. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Around her, chaos erupted. People running, shouting, the sound of chairs scraping and bodies hitting ground. Through the wreckage of the front windows, Rose saw them. 3 men, ski masks, automatic weapons. They moved into the restaurant with practiced efficiency, weapons raised barrels sweeping across the room. "Nobody move!" one of them shouted. His voice was muffled behind the mask. "This doesn't concern you." But Rose knew better. She'd lived in this city long enough to understand how these things worked. This wasn't random. This wasn't a robbery. This was a hit. More gunfire. This time from the back of the restaurant. Vincent Castellanos' security team, returning fire. The sound was deafening. Rose pressed her hands over her ears and tried to make herself smaller behind the bar. She should stay down. She should hide. She should wait for this to end. That's what survival looked like. But then she saw her. Arya. The little girl stumbled out from the hallway leading to the private dining rooms. She was alone, confused. Her tangled curls bounced as she turned in a circle, looking for her father, looking for someone who could explain why the world had suddenly become so loud and wrong. Rose's blood turned to ice. One of the masked gunmen was turning, pivoting toward the back of the restaurant, toward the hallway, toward Arya. His weapon was rising. Rose didn't think. She didn't calculate odds or weigh risks or consider consequences. She just moved. She launched herself from behind the bar. 4 running steps that felt like moving through water. The world slowed down. She could hear her own heartbeat loud and rhythmic in her ears. She could see the gunman's finger tightening on the trigger. She could see Arya's face small and pale and terrified. Rose reached the child and wrapped her arms around that tiny body and turned, shielding Arya with her own back. The bullet hit her shoulder. Not a direct hit, a graze, but close enough. Pain exploded across Rose's upper back, sharp and burning. She gasped. Her vision blurred for half a second, but her arms didn't loosen around Arya. She pulled the girl closer and ran. The kitchen. She had to get them to the kitchen. She knew that space. She'd worked it 100 times. She knew every corner and counter and exit. They crashed through the swinging doors together. Rose's shoulders screamed in protest. Blood soaked through her white shirt, warm and sticky, but she kept moving. She dragged Arya behind the industrial prep counter, shoving them both into the narrow space between steel surface and wall. "Stay with me," Rose whispered. Her voice came out ragged, broken. "I've got you. You're safe. I promise." Arya stared up at her with impossibly wide eyes. The girl was shaking. Her delicate hands gripped Rose's arms with desperate strength. Behind them, gunfire continued. Rose could hear shouting, breaking glass, heavy footsteps of men running through the dining room. She needed to get them out. The back exit, the alley, somewhere away from the guns and violence and smoke starting to fill the air. "We're going to move," Rose said, directly into Arya's ear. "Stay close to me. Don't let go." Arya nodded. She didn't speak, but her fingers fisted in Rose's apron like lifelines. They moved in a crouch. Rose used her body to shield the child, navigating between prep stations and equipment. Each step sent pain lancing through her shoulder. Each breath felt like fire in her lungs. The back exit glowed red in emergency lighting. Rose hit the bar with her hip, and the door swung open. Afternoon sunlight blinded her. The alley stretched ahead, narrow and lined with dumpsters. The sound of sirens was growing louder. Police, ambulances, help was coming. Rose pulled Arya through the door and slammed it shut behind them. Her fingers fumbled with the external lock until it clicked into place. Then she leaned against cool metal and tried to catch her breath. That's when she felt the small arms wrap around her waist. Arya was crying. Silent sobs that shook her entire body. The girl pressed her face into Rose's stomach and held on like she was drowning. Rose sank down to the dirty alley pavement. She pulled Arya into her lap and rocked her gently. The pain in her shoulder felt distant now, less important than the weight of this child in her arms. "You're okay," Rose murmured. "You're safe. I've got you. She could hear boots on tile inside the restaurant, shouts, the distinct sound of car engines roaring to life. The attack was ending as quickly as it had begun. Roz didn't move. She couldn't. Not when Arya needed this. Not when she needed this. The sirens grew deafening. Suddenly, the alley was full of uniforms. Police officers and paramedics swarming around them, hands reaching, voices asking questions. Someone tried to separate them. Arya screamed. The sound was raw, primal. A child's terror given voice. No. Arya's hands dug into Rose's arms. No, don't take her. Don't. A paramedic knelt beside them. Young, maybe 30. He had kind eyes. Miss, we need to check you both for injuries. Can you let us? She won't let go, Rose said. Her own voice sounded strange, distant. Just give her a minute, please. The paramedic nodded. He began examining Rose's shoulder while Arya remained wrapped around her. The girl's fingers had tangled in Rose's apron strings. She refused to release them even as the paramedic tried gently to move her. Then, Vincent Castellano appeared. He moved through the crowd like a force of nature. People stepped aside without being asked. His suit was torn. Blood stained his shirt, though Rose couldn't tell if it was his or someone else's. His face was granite, hard, dangerous. Until he saw Arya. Something cracked in Vincent Castellano's expression. Something that looked like pain and relief and fear all twisted together into something too complicated to name. He dropped to one knee beside them. His hands shook slightly as he reached out to touch his daughter's face, checking her for injuries with movements surprisingly gentle for someone who looked like he could break steel with his bare hands. He spoke rapid Italian, words Rose couldn't understand, but the tone was clear. Relief, gratitude, fear. Arya saw him. Her face crumpled, but she didn't let go of Rose. The paramedic was trying to examine Rose's shoulder, but Arya had wrapped herself so tightly around Rose that it was impossible to separate them without causing more distress. Vincent's eyes lifted. He looked at Rose for the first time, really looked at her. She saw him take in the blood on her uniform, the way she was still shielding his child with her body, the exhaustion and pain written across her face. The paramedic said something about needing to treat the gunshot wound. The words seemed to hit Vincent like a physical blow. His jaw tightened. She took a bullet for my daughter, Vincent said. His English carried a slight accent, perfectly clear, perfectly controlled. Rose shook her head. I just pulled her out of the way. Anyone would have done the same. Vincent's expression suggested he didn't believe that for a second. That's when Arya shifted in Rose's arms. The girl pulled back just enough to look up at Rose's face. Her eyes were red from crying. Tears streaked her cheeks. When she spoke, her voice was so small that Rose almost didn't hear it over the noise of emergency vehicles and crowd. Mommy? The word dropped into the chaos like a stone into still water. Everything seemed to stop. The paramedic's hands froze. Vincent's face went absolutely white. Rose felt her heart stutter in her chest as she processed what Arya had just said, what she just called her. Arya's fingers tightened in Rose's apron. Her lower lip trembled. Mommy, don't leave me. Rose's throat closed. She looked at Vincent, desperate for him to correct his daughter, to explain that there had been a misunderstanding. But Vincent was staring at Arya with an expression that looked like grief and hope tangled together into something painful. His lips moved, but no sound came out. Rose tried to speak gently. Her hand stroked Arya's wild curls in what she hoped was a soothing gesture. Sweetheart, I'm not your mommy. I'm just a waitress who was happy to help you. Your daddy is right here. Arya shook her head violently. She pressed closer to Rose's chest. You saved me, Arya said. Her logic was childlike and heartbreaking. Mommies save. That's what mommies do. Something cracked open inside Rose's chest. Something she didn't have a name for. She looked at Vincent again, silently begging him to help her navigate this impossible moment. But Vincent seemed frozen. His eyes were locked on his daughter like he was seeing something he'd thought was lost forever. A woman in tactical gear appeared at Vincent's shoulder. She spoke rapidly in Italian. He responded without looking away from Arya, his voice carrying an edge of command that made it clear he was used to being obeyed. The woman nodded and moved away, speaking into a radio. Vincent finally seemed to collect himself. He reached out slowly, carefully, as if afraid the moment might shatter. "Piccola," he said softly, "this kind woman helped you, but we need to let the doctors take care of her now." Arya turned to look at her father. Her expression held something that made Rose's heart ache. "Why can't she come with us? Why can't she stay?" Vincent's jaw worked for a moment before he spoke. "Because she has her own life, her own family." Rose heard herself speaking before she'd made the conscious decision to do so. "I don't mind coming along, just until she's calmer, if that would help." Vincent's eyes snapped to her face. She saw surprise there, followed by something that might have been respect. He nodded once, a sharp movement, then stood and began issuing orders to the people around them in a tone that suggested this was a man accustomed to control, to making things happen with nothing more than his word. The paramedic managed to treat Rose's shoulder while she held Arya. The girl refused to be separated from her for even the few minutes the examination required. The bullet had grazed rather than penetrated. The paramedic said she was lucky. Lucky. Rose wasn't sure that was the right word for any of this. They bandaged her up, gave her something for the pain, and then she found herself being guided into the back of a black sedan with Arya still clinging to her hand. Vincent slid into the seat across from them. That's when Rose finally understood that she just agreed to leave with someone whose name she barely knew. The realization should have terrified her, but she was too exhausted and too focused on the little girl pressed against her side. Vincent seemed to read her thoughts. "My name is Vincent Castellano," he said. "This is my daughter Arya. You saved her life today." Rose nodded slowly. Her brain was trying to catch up with everything that had happened in the last hour. "Rosalind Thorne," she managed. "People call me Rose, and I just did what anyone with a conscience would do." Vincent's expression suggested that he lived in a world where not everyone had a conscience, but he didn't say it out loud. Instead, he pulled out his phone and began making calls in rapid Italian. His voice was low and intense. Rose caught enough words to understand that people were being dispatched, locations secured, threats assessed. She was beginning to understand that Vincent Castellano was not someone who worked in an office or ran a legitimate business, and that the attack on the restaurant had been very specifically targeting him. The car pulled through gates that opened automatically. The property beyond looked more like a fortress than a home. High walls, cameras everywhere, men in suits standing at strategic positions. Rose's stomach dropped as the reality crystallized, but Arya's hand was still in hers, small, trusting. The girl looked up at her with those dark eyes, and Rose couldn't bring herself to pull away. They were shown inside. The house was massive, marble floors, artwork that probably cost more than Rose would make in her lifetime. Chandeliers throwing crystalline light across everything. A woman in her early 40s appeared immediately. She had kind eyes and efficient movements. Vincent spoke to her in Italian. She nodded, then turned to Rose with a warm smile. "I'm Catherine," she said. Her English was unaccented. "Vincent's sister. Let me show you to a room where you can rest. We'll have a doctor examine that shoulder properly, and we'll find you some clean clothes." Rose started to protest that she should just go home, but Arya's grip tightened painfully on her hand. The little girl looked up at her with those huge dark eyes. "Just for a little while," Rose heard herself say, "until she's ready to let go." Catherine's expression softened with understanding. She led them upstairs to a guest room that was larger than Rose's entire apartment. Arya refused to leave Rose's side while the doctor examined her shoulder. The girl stood so close that the doctor finally just worked around her. The wound was cleaned and properly bandaged. Antibiotics were prescribed. Rose was given strict instructions to rest and avoid strenuous activity. As the doctor packed up his supplies, Arya tugged on Rose's hand. "Will you stay with me tonight?" The girl's voice was barely a whisper. "I don't like being alone when it's dark." Rose looked at Catherine, uncertain. Catherine sat on the edge of the bed. Her expression was thoughtful, sad. She's had nightmares since her mother died, Catherine said quietly. 2 years now. She hasn't slept through a full night in all that time. She stopped talking 6 months ago. The doctor said it was trauma, selective mutism. We've tried everything. The information hit Rose like a punch to the chest. She looked down at Arya, seeing the child's request in a completely different light. This wasn't just about today's trauma. This was about a little girl who'd been living with loss and fear for so long that she'd forgotten what safety felt like. Rose knelt down, ignoring the protest from her shoulder until she was eye level with Arya. "I'll stay tonight," she said carefully. "I promise. But tomorrow we'll need to talk about what happens next. Okay?" Arya threw her arms around Rose's neck. Over the child's shoulder, Rose saw Vincent standing in the doorway. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes held something that looked like wonder and pain mixed together. That night, Rose found herself lying in an unfamiliar bed, in an unfamiliar room with a 4-year-old girl curled against her side like she'd been doing it her whole life. Arya had insisted on holding Rose's hand even as she fell asleep. Her breathing gradually evened out into the rhythm of childhood rest. Rose stared at the ceiling. She tried to process everything that had happened, tried to understand how her life had been completely overturned in the space of a single afternoon. She must have dozed off eventually, because she woke to find Arya thrashing beside her. Small sounds of distress escaped the girl's throat. Rose pulled Arya close, murmuring reassurances. Arya's eyes opened, unfocused, afraid in the dim light, filtering through curtains. "Mommy," she whimpered. Rose's heart broke and mended and broke again. "I'm here, sweetheart. You're safe. I'm right here." Arya settled back against her. Within minutes, the girl was sleeping peacefully again. Rose lay awake for a long time after that. The word "mommy" echoed through her mind like a question she didn't know how to answer. Morning came too soon. Sunlight streamed through windows overlooking manicured gardens. Arya was still asleep, her small hand wrapped around Rose's fingers. There was a soft knock at the door. "Come in," Rose said quietly. Vincent entered. He looked like he hadn't slept either. Dark circles under his eyes, tension in every line of his body. He wore different clothes, casual, jeans and a black sweater, but he still moved with that same contained power. He gestured for Rose to follow him. She carefully extracted herself from Arya's grip, tucking the girl in before slipping out of the room. Vincent led her to his study. The room was all leather and dark wood and paintings worth more than Rose could imagine. He gestured for her to sit. She did, suddenly aware that she was wearing borrowed clothes and living in a stranger's home and had absolutely no plan for what came next. Vincent spoke first. His voice was careful, measured. "You need to understand something, Miss Thorne. The attack yesterday was not random. I have enemies, people who would hurt my daughter to hurt me. And now they know that you saved her. They know that Arya has formed an attachment to you." Rose's blood ran cold. "You're saying I'm in danger now?" Vincent nodded. Something in his expression looked almost apologetic. "I'm saying that my world is dangerous, and you've become part of it whether you intended to or not. I can offer you protection, money, a new identity somewhere far from here if that's what you choose." The offer was generous, more than generous. Rose knew she should take it. Should run as far and fast as she could from this man and his dangerous life, and the violence that followed him like a shadow. But then she remembered the way Arya had held her hand through the night, the way the little girl had slept peacefully for the first time in 2 years, the way she'd looked at Rose like she was the answer to every prayer she'd been too scared to say out loud. "What does Arya want?" Rose asked quietly. Vincent's laugh was bitter and sad. "My daughter wants a mother. She wants someone who won't disappear, someone who stays when things get hard." Rose met his eyes. "And what do you want?" Vincent was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a weight that made Rose understand just how much this man had lost. "I want my daughter to smile again. I want her to sleep through the night without screaming. I want her to feel safe in a world that has taught her nothing but fear." If you can give her that even for a little while, then I want you to stay. But I won't lie to you about what that means. It means living under protection. It means constant vigilance. It means accepting that my enemies are now your enemies too. The smart choice was obvious. The safe choice was clear. But Rose thought about her sister Meredith dying in a hospital bed because she couldn't afford the treatment that would save her. She thought about her studio apartment with its eviction notice and broken heater. She thought about serving coffee to people who never bothered to learn her name. And she thought about Auria's small hand in hers. The way the girl had whispered mommy like it was the most precious word in the world. Running is easy, Rose said. Staying is hard. Arya needs someone who won't disappear. Vincent stared at her like she'd just spoken in a language he didn't understand. You're choosing to stay in a life that could get you killed. Rose took a breath. I'm choosing to stay for as long as Arya needs me. After that, we'll see. Something shifted in Vincent's expression. A wall coming down that she suspected didn't lower for many people. He nodded once, sharp and decisive. Then we need to discuss terms. Your sister Meredith, 22 years old, leukemia. She needs a bone marrow transplant, $200,000. Rose's heart stopped. How do you? I know everything about you, Rosalind Thorne. Your 3 jobs, your medical debt, the eviction notice, the loan sharks circling. I needed to understand who saved my daughter's life. He pulled out his phone, typed something, then showed her the screen. A bank transfer, $200,000 into an account in Rose's name. Your sister's treatment starts immediately. Best doctors, best facility, but the transplant will take time to schedule properly. Matching protocols, prep work, recovery planning. We're looking at 4 to 6 weeks before the actual surgery. Until then, she'll have the best care money can buy. Rose couldn't breathe. I can't accept this. It's too much. I haven't earned. Vincent leaned forward. His eyes were intense, dark, serious. You threw yourself between my daughter and a bullet. You gave me back the one thing in this world I'd kill to protect. This isn't payment. This is gratitude. And it's non-negotiable. Rose's hands were shaking. What if I leave? What if I decide tomorrow that I can't do this? Then you leave. The money is yours regardless. Your sister gets her transplant. Your debts are cleared. You start fresh somewhere else. Vincent paused. But I don't think you will leave because you're not the kind of person who runs from hard things. You're the kind who runs toward danger to save a child you don't even know. He stood, walked to the window, looked out at the grounds. Arya will wake up soon. She'll look for you. She'll want you to have breakfast with her. She'll probably want you to help her get dressed and brush her hair and do all the things that mothers do. His voice roughened. Things she hasn't let anyone do since Maria died. Rose stood too. Vincent. He turned, and for the first time she saw past the dangerous man who ran a criminal empire to the father who would do anything to protect his child. Thank you, he said simply, for giving her back something I thought she'd lost forever. The weeks that followed were strange, surreal, like living in a dream that Rose kept expecting to end. She learned the routines of the house, the protocols for security, the way everyone moved through Vincent's world with careful awareness, like they were playing a game with lethal consequences for mistakes. She learned that Vincent ran an organization that existed in shadows, that the men who worked for him were loyal to the point of death, that the attack on the restaurant had been orchestrated by a rival faction trying to expand their territory. But mostly, she learned about Arya. The little girl was smart, funny, desperately lonely beneath her careful politeness. She'd been raised by bodyguards and housekeepers, taught to be quiet and obedient and never draw attention to herself. She'd learned to survive in a world of adults and violence, but she'd forgotten how to be a child. Rose set about changing that. She read books with Arya every night, created art projects that left the kitchen table covered in glitter and paint, taught her silly songs, and made up games that filled the quiet house with laughter. She helped with homework and bandaged scraped knees, and sat with Arya through nightmares until the girl learned to trust that Rose would still be there when morning came. Vincent watched it all. His expression grew softer day by day. 3 weeks after the shooting, Catherine found Rose in the garden where she was helping Arya plant flowers. The older woman sat on a nearby bench. Her expression was thoughtful. You should know something about Arya's mother, Catherine said quietly. She was killed in a car bombing meant for Vincent. Arya was supposed to be with her that day, but she'd stayed home with a cold. She spent 2 years thinking that if she'd been there, maybe she could have saved her mother. Or maybe she was supposed to die too. The words made Rose's chest hurt. She watched Arya carefully pressing soil around a small plant, her tongue caught between her teeth in concentration. When you threw yourself between Arya and those bullets, Catherine continued, you gave her something she's been desperately needing. Proof that she's worth saving, that someone would choose her safety over their own. You didn't just save her life, Rose. You saved what was left of her ability to trust. Rose didn't know what to say. She just nodded and turned her attention back to Arya, who was excitedly showing her an earthworm she discovered in the soil. That evening, Vincent asked to speak with her. They sat in his study. He poured 2 glasses of whiskey without asking if she wanted one. She took it surprised to find her hands were shaking slightly. I wanted you to know, Vincent said, that the men responsible for the attack are no longer a threat. It's over. You're safe now. Arya is safe. Relief flooded through Rose so strong it left her dizzy. That's good, she managed. That's really good. Vincent nodded, but he didn't look happy. Which means you're free to leave if you want. I'll honor my original offer. Money, a new life, whatever you need. Rose took a sip of whiskey. The burn helped her focus. And if I don't want to leave, Vincent's hand tightened on his glass. Then you need to understand what staying means. Not just for now, but for the future. Arya calls you mommy now, every day. She talks about you like you hung the moon. If you stay, you're not just staying as her caretaker or her guardian. You're staying as her mother. The words settled over Rose like a weight and a gift at the same time. I know, she said. Vincent met her eyes. She saw vulnerability there that she suspected he rarely showed anyone. My daughter has had her heart broken once already. If you're going to leave eventually, it's better to do it now, before she's in too deep. Rose set down her glass carefully. Vincent, I'm already in too deep. I think I have been since the moment she called me mommy in that alley. I'm not going anywhere, unless you want me to. Something in Vincent's expression cracked. For just a moment, she saw past the dangerous man who ran a criminal empire to the father who would do anything to protect his child. Thank you, he said. His voice was rough, for giving her back something I thought she'd lost forever. Outside through the study window, Rose could see Arya playing in the garden. The girl was laughing. Actually laughing. The sound carried through the glass like music. Rose had come here to save a life. She thought she meant the child's. But watching Arya, now seeing the light return to those dark eyes, Rose understood that she'd been wrong. She hadn't just saved Arya. Arya had saved her right back. The morning Rosalind Thorne realized she was falling in love with Vincent Castellano, she was standing in his kitchen, teaching his daughter how to make pancakes. It was a Tuesday, 6 weeks after the shooting. Arya stood on a step stool beside the stove, her delicate hands wrapped around a spatula that was too big for her fingers. Flour dusted her wild curls. Batter spotted her pajamas. She was giggling as Ross showed her how to flip the pancake without making it fly across the room. Vincent appeared in the doorway. He'd just come from his morning run. Sweatpants and a t-shirt that showed arms that could break a man in half. His hair was damp. His face was relaxed in a way Rose had never seen before. He watched them. Just watched. And the expression on his face made something twist in Rose's chest. It wasn't the look of a man observing his employee. It was the look of a man seeing his family, his future. Daddy look. Arya held up her spatula triumphantly. I did it, I flipped it, and it didn't break. Vincent's smile transformed his face, made him look younger, less dangerous, more human. Bravissima piccola, he said softly. He crossed the kitchen, kissed the top of Arya's head. Then his hand found the small of Rose's back. A touch that lingered, warm, possessive, gentle. "Good morning," he murmured. Rose's heart stumbled. "Morning." Their eyes held for a beat too long. Arya was too busy with her pancakes to notice, but Rose noticed. She noticed everything about Vincent Castellano these days. The way he laughed at Arya's jokes, the way he sat through tea parties in tiny chairs without complaint, the way he looked at Rose across the dinner table like she was something precious he was afraid to break. They'd been circling each other for weeks, careful, cautious, both of them aware that whatever was building between them could complicate everything. But that morning, standing in the kitchen with a flower in her hair, and Vincent's hand on her back, and Arya's laughter filling the air, Rose stopped fighting it. She was in love with him. She was in love with this life. She was in love with the family they were building from the wreckage of violence and loss. Later that afternoon, Vincent found her in his home gym. Rose had been using the space for her daily workouts, part of the routine he'd insisted on. If she was going to live in his world, he'd said, she needed to know how to protect herself. "Catherine's taking Arya to a birthday party," Vincent said from the doorway. "We have the house to ourselves for 3 hours." Rose turned from the punching bag. She was breathing hard from the workout. Her tank top clung to her skin. Vincent's eyes tracked over her, slow, deliberate. Heat flickered in his gaze. "What did you have in mind?" Rose asked. "Sparring," Vincent said, but his voice suggested he had other things on his mind too. They moved to the mat, started slow, defensive moves, blocks and counters. But the proximity changed things. The awareness between them had been simmering for weeks. Now it reached a boiling point. Vincent caught Rose's wrist, twisted. She went with the momentum and ended up pressed against his chest, his arm wrapped around her waist. They were both breathing hard, and neither of them was moving to break the hold. "This is a bad idea," Vincent said. His voice was rough. "Terrible idea," Rose agreed. But she didn't pull away, and neither did he. Vincent's hand came up to cup her face. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone. The gesture was so tender it made Rose's eyes sting. "You've changed everything," he whispered. "I was dead inside, just going through the motions. Then you ran into gunfire for a child you didn't know. And suddenly I remembered what it felt like to want something more than survival." Rose's hand found his chest. She could feel his heartbeat under her palm. Strong, steady. "I was drowning," she said. "Working 3 jobs, watching my sister die, feeling invisible. Then Arya looked at me and called me mommy, and suddenly I had a reason to wake up in the morning." Vincent's forehead touched hers. "I'm falling in love with you, Rosalind Thorne." "I'm already there," Rose breathed. He kissed her. It wasn't their first kiss. That had happened 2 weeks ago. A quick stolen moment in the hallway when Arya was asleep. But this was different. This was a promise, a claim, a beginning. Vincent's hands tangled in her hair. Rose's arms wrapped around his neck. The kiss deepened, grew more urgent, more desperate. They broke apart when they heard the front door open, Catherine's voice calling out, Arya's footsteps running through the house. Vincent rested his forehead against Rose's. Both of them were breathing like they'd run a marathon. "We'll continue this later," he said. "Promise," Rose managed. "Promise." That night after Arya was asleep, Vincent took Rose to the rooftop. Philadelphia stretched out below them, city lights glittering like stars fallen to earth. They sat on the outdoor furniture. Vincent pulled Rose against his side. She fit there like she'd been made for that space. "Tell me about your wife," Rose said quietly. Vincent was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried old pain. "Maria was good, pure. She didn't belong in my world, but she loved me anyway, tried to make me better, gave me Arya." He paused. "The car bomb was meant for me. I was supposed to be in that vehicle. But I'd stayed late at a meeting. Maria took Arya to her mother's house, except Arya had a fever. So Maria left her home with the nanny and went alone." Rose's hand found his, squeezed. "Arya heard the explosion from our bedroom window. She was 4 years old. She watched the smoke rise from 3 blocks away. And when I came home and told her that her mother wasn't coming back, she just stared at me. Didn't cry, didn't speak, just stared." "Survivor's guilt," Rose whispered. She thought it should have been her in that car. She stopped eating, stopped talking, stopped being a child. Vincent's arm tightened around Rose. Then you threw yourself in front of bullets for her. You showed her that her life was worth saving, that someone would choose her. You gave her permission to live again. Rose turned to look at him. You gave me permission to live too. I was just existing, going through motions, waiting to drown. Then I saved Arya, and suddenly I had a purpose, a family. Vincent's hand came up to cup her face. You're my home now, Rosalind. Not this house, not this city, you. They kissed again, slower this time, deeper. A promise that this was real, that this was their future. But forever, Rose would learn, was a fragile thing in Vincent Castellanos' world. The next morning, everything fell apart. Rose woke to shouting, not Arya's voice, adult voices, angry, coming from downstairs. She pulled on a robe and ran. Her heart pounded. Some instinct told her that whatever was happening, it was bad. She found Vincent in his study. He stood behind his desk. His face was granite, dangerous. And across from him stood a man Rose had never seen before. He looked like Vincent, same dark hair, same build, but younger, maybe late 30s, and his eyes held something that made Rose's skin crawl. Resentment, rage, jealousy. You need to leave, Vincent said. His voice was ice. Now. Not until I say what I came to say. The man's eyes found Rose in the doorway. So this is her, the waitress playing house. Marco, Vincent's voice carried a warning. Don't! Marco, Vincent's younger brother. Rose had heard the name whispered among the household staff. The black sheep, the one who'd been cut from the family business. Marco's laugh was bitter. What, I can't meet the woman who's replaced Maria, the one who's got my niece calling her mommy after 6 weeks. Get out. Vincent's hand moved toward the drawer where Rose knew he kept a gun. But Marco pulled out his phone, held it up. You might want to see this first. He pressed play. A video filled the screen. Security footage from inside the house. Grainy, black and white, but clear enough. It showed Rose in the hallway near Arya's room. And it showed her talking to someone on her phone. Except Rose didn't remember that conversation. She didn't remember being filmed. The audio was muffled. But words came through. Fragments of a conversation. How long until we move? Yes, I have access. Trust me. Castellano doesn't suspect anything. Rose's blood turned to ice. That's not me, she said. Her voice came out weak, uncertain. I never said those things. Marco smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. There's more. Bank records, deposits to an offshore account in your name, communications with FBI field agents. You've been busy, Miss Thorne. He threw a folder onto Vincent's desk. Papers spilled across the mahogany surface. Vincent didn't move, but something in his expression shifted, hardened. Vincent, Rose said. She stepped forward. Whatever this is, it's fake. I would never. The evidence is pretty clear, Marco interrupted. She's FBI, or working with them, planted here to get close to you, to Arya, to gather intelligence. That's insane. Rose's voice rose. I'm not FBI. I'm not working with anyone. But Vincent was looking at the papers now. His face was unreadable, closed off. Rose felt panic rising in her chest. Vincent, please. You know me. You know I would never hurt Arya, never betray you. Do I? Vincent's voice was quiet, dangerous. I've known you for 6 weeks, Rosalind. 6 weeks. Marco, I've known my entire life. The words hit like a physical blow. After everything, Rose's voice broke. After last night, after everything we've shared, you don't believe me. Vincent's jaw tightened. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Doubt. Conflict. But then it was gone. I want to believe you, but the evidence is fabricated. Rose was shaking now. Can't you see that someone is setting me up? Who? Vincent's eyes were hard. Who would go through this much trouble? Rose's gaze snapped to Marco. He stood there with his arms crossed, smug, satisfied. Him, she said. He's the one. He did this. Marco laughed. That's desperate. Why would I frame you? Because you want Vincent's empire. You want everything he has. And I'm in your way. Enough. Vincent's voice cut through the room like a blade. He looked at Rose, and the coldness in his eyes made her want to weep. I need you to leave tonight. Take the money I gave you. Take your sister. Go somewhere far from here. Vincent, this is not a negotiation. His voice was flat, final. You have until morning to pack. After that, my men will escort you out. Rose felt like the floor was dropping out from under her. What about Arya? She needs me. Arya will be fine. She survived before you came. She'll survive after you leave. The dismissal was complete, absolute. Rose looked at Vincent, really looked at him, trying to see the man who'd kissed her last night, who told her she'd changed everything. But that man was gone, buried under layers of suspicion and betrayal and old wounds that had never healed. You're making a mistake, Rose said quietly. Maybe. Vincent turned away from her, toward the window. But it's my mistake to make. Rose left the study. Her legs felt weak. Her chest ached like something had been ripped out of it. Catherine found her in the hallway. The older woman's face was sympathetic but resigned. I'll help you pack, Catherine said softly. He actually believes I'd hurt Arya. Rose's voice came out broken. After everything, he believes I'm capable of that. Catherine's expression was sad. Vincent has been betrayed before, by people he trusted. It's made him cautious, made him build walls. I wasn't trying to break walls, I was trying to build a family. I know. Catherine touched Rose's arm. For what it's worth, I believe you, but Vincent is complicated. He'll realize the truth eventually. Eventually might be too late. Rose went to Arya's room. The girl was still asleep, curled up in her bed with the stuffed rabbit Rose had bought her last week. She looked peaceful, happy. Rose knelt beside the bed, brushed Arya's tangled curls back from her face. I'm sorry, baby, she whispered. I'm so sorry. She couldn't wake her, couldn't say goodbye. It would destroy them both. So she just sat there, watching Arya sleep, memorizing every detail of her face, the curve of her cheek, the way her eyelashes fanned across her skin, the small smile that touched her lips even in dreams. An hour later, Rose was in a car, headed to a motel on the outskirts of the city. She had a bag of clothes, an envelope of cash, and a hole in her chest where her heart used to be. The motel was cheap, dirty, everything Vincent's world was not. Rose sat on the sagging mattress and stared at the water-stained ceiling. Her phone rang. Meredith. Rose, where are you? I've been calling for hours. Rose's voice came out flat, hollow. I'm fine. How are you feeling? Better. The doctors say the prep work for the transplant is going well. 4 more weeks and I'll be ready. Meredith paused.
Rose, what's wrong? You sound terrible. I'm just tired. Liar. Tell me what happened. So Rose told her. Everything, the shooting, Arya, Vincent, falling in love, the betrayal, the exile. When she finished, Meredith was quiet for a long moment. Go back, she said finally. What? Go back. That child needs you. And from what you've just told me, that man needs you too, even if he's too stupid to realize it. He threw me out, Mayor. He doesn't trust me. Then make him see the truth. Fight for your family, because that's what they are, aren't they? Your family. Rose closed her eyes. Tears leaked from the corners. Yeah, they are. Then don't give up. Not yet. After they hung up, Rose sat in the silence. Part of her wanted to run, to take the money and disappear, to start over somewhere far from Vincent Castellano and his dangerous world. But another part of her, the part that had run into gunfire for a child she didn't know, refused to quit. Arya needed her.
And maybe, just maybe Vincent did too. She just had to prove she wasn't the enemy. Meanwhile, back at the Castellano mansion, Arya woke up screaming. Vincent ran to her room, found her sitting up in bed, tears streaming down her face. Where's mommy? Arya sobbed. I want mommy. Vincent tried to comfort her. Piccola, it's okay. I'm here. But Arya pushed him away. No, not you. I want Rose. Where is she? Catherine appeared in the doorway. Her face was grim. She's asking for Roz, Vincent said helplessly. Then maybe you should call her, Catherine said. Her voice was sharp. Before our niece breaks her heart again. But Vincent's jaw was set, stubborn. Arya will adjust. She did before. Before she stopped talking for 6 months, stopped eating, nearly died from grief. Catherine's eyes flashed. Is that what you want to watch her fade away again? Vincent had no answer. For 3 days, Arya refused to eat, refused to speak. She lay in her bed and stared at the ceiling and wouldn't respond to anyone. The doctors came, ran tests, found nothing physically wrong. It was the same pattern as after Maria's death. The child withdrawing into herself, choosing silence over a world that hurt too much. Vincent sat by her bedside, held her small hand, whispered apologies she didn't respond to. On the 4th day, his tech expert Dmitri burst into his study. Boss, you need to see this. Dmitri pulled up files on Vincent's computer. Original security footage, unedited. The video Marco showed you was doctored. See here, timestamps don't match. Audio is spliced from different sources. And this conversation Miss Thorne supposedly had, he played the real footage. She was actually talking to her sister about Arya's birthday party next month. Vincent's blood ran cold. And the bank records, fabricated. I traced the documents back to an IP address registered to Marco's apartment. And there's more. Dmitri pulled up financial records. Marco's been embezzling from the organization for 2 years. Offshore accounts, shell companies. He's stolen over $40 million. Vincent stood slowly. His hands were shaking with rage, with horror, with devastating realization. How long have you known? I started digging the night Miss Thorne left. Something didn't feel right. Took me 3 days to crack Marco's encryption. Vincent's fist slammed onto the desk. 3 days. She's been gone for 3 days thinking I don't trust her, that I chose my brother over her. There's more. Dimitri's expression was grim. I found communications between Marco and the FBI. He's been feeding them information about your operations, planning to get immunity by testifying against you. He needs you isolated, vulnerable. Miss Thorne was making you too strong, too human, so he got rid of her. Vincent was already moving, grabbing his jacket, his phone, his keys. Catherine appeared in the doorway. Where are you going? To fix the biggest mistake of my life. He found Rose at the motel. Room 147. The door was battered, paint peeling. Everything about the place was wrong for a woman who'd been living in his home, sleeping in his guest room, becoming part of his family. Vincent knocked, waited. The door opened. Rose stood there in jeans and a t-shirt. Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying. When she saw him, her expression closed off. What do you want, Vincent? To apologize. Bit late for that. I know. He took a breath. Can I come in? Rose hesitated, then stepped back. Let him enter. The room was tiny. One bed, a table, a TV that probably didn't work. Rose's bag sat on the chair, packed, ready to run. Vincent turned to face her, and then in front of this woman he'd wronged, he dropped to his knees. I was wrong, he said. His voice was rough. About everything. The evidence was fake. Marco planted it. He's been embezzling, planning to destroy me. He needed you gone because you were making me human again, making me vulnerable, making me care about something more than power. And I fell for it. I chose suspicion over trust, fear over love. I chose wrong. Rose's face was carefully blank. And you believed him over me? Yes. Vincent didn't look away, didn't make excuses. I have been betrayed before, by people I trusted. It made me paranoid, made me see threats where there were none. But that's not an excuse. I should have trusted you, should have believed in what we were building together. Instead, I threw you away, like you were nothing. After everything we shared, after you saved my daughter, after I told you that you were my home, you threw me away like I was nothing. Rose's voice cracked. After everything we were becoming, you chose suspicion over faith. I know. Vincent's hands were shaking. I failed you. I failed Arya. She stopped eating again, stopped talking. She's fading, Rosalind. Just like after Maria. And it's my fault. All of it. Rose closed her eyes. Tears slipped down her cheeks. I don't deserve your forgiveness. Vincent continued. But I'm begging you. Come home. Arya needs you. I need you. Whatever it takes to prove I'll never doubt you again, I'll do it. Legal papers giving you custody. Marriage if you want it. My name. My protection. Everything I have. Just come home. Rose opened her eyes, looked down at this powerful man kneeling on a dirty motel floor. Why should I believe you won't do this again? Won't throw me out the next time someone plants evidence? Because I love you. The words came out raw, honest. I'm in love with you, Rosalind Thorne, and I just realized that the scariest thing in my world isn't my enemies. It's losing you, losing what we have, losing the family we're building. He pulled something from his pocket. A business card. FBI. I've been talking to the FBI, off the record, for the past month about getting out, going legitimate, walking away from the illegal operations. I didn't tell you because I wasn't sure it would work. But now with Marco's embezzlement and betrayal, they have everything they need to take him down. And I have a deal. Immunity for testimony, clean slate, a legitimate future. I was doing it for Arya. But I'm also doing it for you, for us. Rose stared at the card. You were planning to leave the business before all this. For Arya, for you, for the future I want us to have. A future where you don't have to look over your shoulder, where our daughter doesn't grow up surrounded by violence. Rose was quiet for a long moment. Then she knelt down, met his eyes at the same level. I want legal papers. Full custody of Arya if something happens to you. I want her protected, safe, mine, done. And I want you to trust me, really trust me. No more walls, no more suspicion. If we do this, we do it as partners, as equals. Whatever you want. And I want Marco to pay, properly, through the legal system, not through violence. The FBI will handle it. He'll spend the next 30 years in federal prison. Ross searched his face. Then take me home, to our daughter. Vincent pulled her into his arms, held her like he was afraid she'd disappear. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. I know. Rose held him back. Now let's go fix what you broke. They arrived at the mansion an hour later. Catherine met them at the door. Relief flooded her face when she saw Rose. She's in her room, won't come out. Rose took the stairs two at a time, pushed open Arya's door. The little girl lay curled in her bed, small, fragile, lost. Arya, Rose's voice was soft. The girl didn't move. Rose sat on the edge of the bed, touched Arya's shoulder gently. Baby, I'm here. I'm so sorry I left, but I'm back now, and I'm not going anywhere, ever again, I promise. Arya's eyes opened, dark, cautious, afraid to hope. Mommy, her voice was barely a whisper. Yeah, baby, it's me. Arya turned, looked at Rose, and then she launched herself into Rose's arms with a cry that broke hearts and healed them at the same time. You came back. Mommy came back. Rose held her, rocked her, let her own tears fall. I'll always come back. Always. I promise. Vincent stood in the doorway, watching them, his daughter clinging to the woman he loved, the family he'd almost destroyed with his paranoia and fear. Catherine touched his arm. Don't screw this up again. I won't. The next 2 weeks were healing, rebuilding trust, learning to be a family again. Arya flourished. Her appetite returned. Her laughter filled the house. She started talking about the future, about her birthday party, about starting kindergarten in the fall, and every night she fell asleep with Rose beside her. Safe, loved, home. Rose and Vincent grew closer, more careful with each other, more honest. He showed her the FBI deal, the plans for going legitimate, the timeline for shutting down illegal operations. She told him about her fears, her dreams, her hope that they could build something real together, something lasting. 4 weeks after Roz returned, Meredith underwent her bone marrow transplant. Roz was there, holding her sister's hand, crying tears of relief and hope. The surgery was successful. The doctors were optimistic. Meredith would need time to recover, but the prognosis was excellent. Vincent arranged for Meredith to recover in the mansion's guest house, with family, where she belonged. But Vincent's world was never safe for long, and Marco had been waiting, planning, building his final move. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. Vincent's phone rang. He answered, listened. His face went white. Roz looked up from the book she was reading with Arya. Vincent hung up. His hand was shaking. Marco has them. Who? Arya and Meredith. He took them from the hospital. Meredith was there for a follow-up appointment. Arya wanted to visit her. Marco's men grabbed them both from the parking garage. The world tilted. Roz couldn't breathe. Where? I don't know. He said he'll call back with instructions. Roz was on her feet, moving. Then we wait for his call, and we get them back. Vincent caught her hands, stopped her frantic pacing. Roslyn. His phone rang again. Marco's number. Vincent put it on speaker. Hello, brother. Marco's voice was smug, satisfied. I have something you want. Two somethings actually. A very frightened little girl and a very sick young woman. They're both asking for Roz, crying for her. It's actually quite pathetic. What do you want? Vincent's voice was ice. Everything. I want you to know what it feels like to lose it all. First, I'm liquidating your accounts. By the time we're done talking, you'll have nothing. Second, the FBI just raided 3 of your warehouses. I gave them everything. Locations, manifests, names. Your empire is burning as we speak. Vincent's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. And third, Marco continued, you have 2 hours to come to the old warehouse on Columbus Boulevard, alone, with signed documents transferring all legitimate businesses to me. If I see anyone else, if you call the cops, I kill them both, starting with the little girl who thinks Roz is her mommy. The line went dead. Roz looked at Vincent. We're not going alone. No. Vincent was already moving, already planning. We're not, but we're also not giving him what he wants. We're getting them back, together. He made a call. FBI agent and Morrison. It's happening. Marco just made his move. He's got 2 hostages. I'm going in. You'll have your arrest. He hung up, looked at Roz. I'm coming with you, she said. It wasn't a question. I know. The warehouse on Columbus Boulevard sat like a tomb at the edge of the Delaware River, abandoned for years, windows shattered, graffiti covering walls that had once housed legitimate business. Now it was nothing but shadows and rust and the perfect place for Marco Castellano to make his final stand. Vincent's team assembled in darkness, 3 blocks away. 8 men, former military, loyal to the point of death. They moved with silent efficiency, checking weapons, reviewing blueprints, coordinating entry points through earpieces. Roz stood beside Vincent, dressed in black. Catherine had given her body armor. A knife strapped to her thigh, a communication device fitted to her ear. She looked nothing like the waitress who'd served coffee 7 weeks ago. She looked like a woman who'd fight through hell to save her family. You don't have to do this, Vincent said quietly. His hand found hers in the darkness. My men can handle it. They're my daughters too. Rose's voice was steel. Both of them. I'm not waiting in a car while they're in danger. Vincent studied her face, saw the determination there, the love, the absolute refusal to back down. Then we do this together. He pulled her close, kissed her forehead. But you follow my lead. You stay behind me, and if I tell you to run, you run. Understood. Understood. It was a lie. They both knew it. Roz wouldn't run, not if Arya and Meredith were still inside. But Vincent didn't argue. There wasn't time. His tech expert Dmitri pulled up thermal imaging on a tablet. 2 heat signatures on the 2nd floor east side, small, stationary. Could be the girls. 8 signatures scattered throughout the building. Marco's men. And 1 on the ground floor. That's Marco. He's waiting for me, Vincent said. Let him wait. Rose's voice was cold. We're getting the girls first. Vincent nodded, turned to his team. Santino, take your men through the south entrance. Draw their attention. Make noise. Luca, you're with me and Roslyn. North entrance. We go quiet. Find the girls. Extract them. Nobody dies unless they make it necessary. The men nodded. They'd worked with Vincent for years. They knew the drill. But as they moved toward the warehouse, Rose touched Vincent's arm. What about the FBI? They're positioned around the perimeter, waiting for my signal. When we have the girls safe, they move in. Marco gets arrested properly, through the legal system, just like you wanted. They split up. Santino's team moved toward the main entrance. Ross followed Vincent and Luca through shadows approaching the north side of the building where a rusted door hung half open. The interior was worse than the exterior. Decay and neglect had turned the warehouse into a maze of collapsed shelving and debris. Water damage had rotted floors. The smell of mold was overwhelming. Vincent moved with practiced silence. Ross matched his steps. Years of survival on Philadelphia streets had taught her how to be invisible when necessary. They reached a stairwell. Vincent held up his hand, stopped, listened. Voices above, male, speaking in Italian. Marco's guards. Vincent signaled to Luca. The man nodded and moved a hair, disappearing into darkness like smoke. Seconds later, there was a soft thud, then silence. Vincent and Ross continued upward, found Luca standing over an unconscious guard. The man's weapon lay several feet away. He wouldn't be waking up anytime soon. The second floor opened into a large space that had once been offices. Now it was just empty rooms with missing doors and broken furniture. And somewhere in this wreckage, Arya and Meredith were waiting. Ross heard it first, a small sound like crying, muffled but desperate. She touched Vincent's arm, pointed toward a room at the end of the hallway. They moved together. Vincent took point, his weapon raised, every sense alert. The room's door was closed, locked from the outside. Vincent tried the handle, cursed quietly in Italian. Luca appeared with a crowbar. Together they pried the door open. Inside, tied to chairs in the center of the room, were Arya and Meredith. Rose's heart stopped. Arya's face was tear-streaked, her tangled curls matted, her dress torn, but she was conscious, alive. Her eyes went wide when she saw Rose. "Mommy!" She tried to scream, but the gag in her mouth turned it into a muffled cry. Meredith was worse. She slumped in her chair, unconscious. Her skin was gray, her breathing shallow and irregular. Rose ran to them, dropped to her knees. Her hands shook as she removed Arya's gag first. "It's okay, baby. I'm here. Arya sobbed. "He said you weren't coming. He said you left us." "Never." Rose worked on the ropes binding Arya's wrists. "I will always come for you, always." Vincent walked up to Meredith, checked her pulse. His face was grim. "She's barely breathing." Rose finished freeing Arya and turned to her sister. Meredith's lips were blue. Her chest rose and fell in weak, irregular gasps. "Mare." Rose touched her sister's face. "Mare, wake up. Please wake up." Meredith didn't respond. Vincent cut the ropes binding her, caught her as she slumped forward. "She needs a hospital," he said. "We don't have time." Rose's EMT training kicked in, the CPR certification she'd gotten years ago when she'd volunteered at the hospital. When she thought maybe she could be a nurse instead of a waitress, she laid Meredith flat on the floor, tilted her head back, checked her airway. Not breathing, no pulse. "Luca, call for an ambulance. Tell them we need immediate medical." Vincent's voice was calm, controlled, but his eyes betrayed his fear. Ross started chest compressions. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. The rhythm was automatic, muscle memory taking over. "Come on, Mare. Breathe. Please breathe." Arya clung to Vincent, watching with terrified eyes. Ross counted, pushed, breathed for her sister. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. "Mommy, is Aunt Mare going to die?" Arya's voice was small, broken. No, Rose said through gritted teeth. No, she's not, because I won't let her. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. Meredith's chest rose, not from Rose's breath, from her own. She gasped, choked. Her eyes flew open. That's it. Rose turned her on her side. Recovery position. That's it. Breathe. Just breathe. Meredith's hand found Rose's, squeezed weakly. Knew you'd come, she whispered. Always. Vincent helped Rose get Meredith into a sitting position. Color was returning to her sister's face. Her breathing was evening out. What did Marco give you? Rose asked. Some kind of sedative. In water. Said it would keep me calm. Meredith's voice was raspy. I woke up here. Couldn't move. Couldn't breathe right. We're getting you out, both of you. But as Rose said the words, gunfire erupted from below. Santino's team had engaged. The distraction was working. But it also meant Marco knew they were here. Vincent's earpiece crackled. Boss, we've got a problem. Marco's not on the ground floor anymore. He's moving, heading toward the east wing, toward your position. Vincent's weapon came up. He positioned himself between the door and his family. Get them to the north exit. I'll hold him off. No. Ross stood. We leave together. All of us. Rosalind. Together. Vincent looked at her, saw the steel in her eyes, the absolute refusal to lose anyone else. He nodded. Luca, take point. I'll cover rear. Stay close. Stay quiet. They moved as a unit. Luca ahead, Vincent behind, Roz in the middle, with Arya clinging to one hand and supporting Meredith with the other arm. They made it to the stairwell, started down. The gunfire below was getting louder, closer. Then Marco appeared. He stepped into their path at the base of the stairs, gun raised, smile cold. Going somewhere, brother. Vincent's weapon came up. Let them pass, Marco. This is between us. Is it? Marco's eyes found Rose. See, I don't think it is anymore. I think this is about her. About what she represents. The life you want instead of the empire we built. The weakness she's made you embrace. The only weakness here is yours, Vincent said coldly. Jealousy. Greed. Taking hostages because you can't earn respect. Marco's face darkened. I earned respect. I bled for this family. But Papa only saw you. The golden son. The heir. I got nothing. You got everything I did. You chose to throw it away. Chose to steal. Chose to betray. Because nothing was ever enough for you. You had to have it all. The empire, the beautiful wife, the perfect daughter, and now her. Marco's gun swung toward Rose. So I'm taking it. All of it. Starting with them. Time slowed. Rose saw Marco's finger tightening on the trigger. Saw Vincent starting to move. Knew he'd tried to throw himself in front of the bullet. She couldn't let that happen. Arya needed her father. Needed them both. Rose's hand dropped to her thigh. Found the knife Catherine had given her. Her self-defense training from the past weeks flooded back. Vincent's voice in her head. If someone has a gun and they're distracted, go for the weapon hand. Fast and hard, she moved. Faster than Marco expected. Faster than Vincent could stop her. She closed the distance in 3 steps. Grabbed Marco's wrist. Twisted. The gun went off. But the bullet hit the wall, not flesh. Marco tried to pull away, but Rose's momentum carried them both sideways. They hit the ground hard. The gun skittered across the floor. Marco's fist caught Rose's jaw. Pain exploded across her face. Her vision blurred, but she didn't let go. She brought her knee up, connected with his ribs, used the leverage to roll him. Vincent was there, pulling Marco off her, slamming him against the wall with enough force to crack plaster. You threaten my family. Vincent's voice was deadly quiet. You take my daughter, you hurt the woman I love. His fist connected with Marco's face. Once, twice. Marco's head snapped back. Blood poured from his nose. Vincent, stop. Rose was on her feet. Her hand touched his arm. Stop. He's not worth it. Vincent's fist was raised for another blow. But at Rose's touch, at her voice, something in him calmed. He lowered his arm. You're right. He pulled Marco forward, then slammed him against the wall again. He's not worth spending the rest of my life in prison. You can't let me live, Marco choked out. Blood ran from his mouth. You know what I'll do. I'll come back. I'll take everything from you. No, a new voice said. You won't. FBI agents flooded the warehouse. Tactical gear, weapons, led by a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and an air of authority. Vincent Castellano, she said. Agent Sarah Morrison, FBI. Vincent's jaw tightened, but he didn't release Marco. How long have you been listening? Long enough. Morrison gestured to her team. They moved in, cuffed Marco, read him his rights on screen. Marco Castellano, you're under arrest for kidnapping, attempted murder, embezzlement, racketeering, conspiracy to commit fraud, wire fraud, and about 15 other charges that will keep you in federal prison for the next 30 years minimum. Marco struggled. You can't do this. Vincent's the real criminal. He runs the organization. Actually, Morrison said, pulling out a document, we have a signed cooperation agreement with Mr. Castellano. He's been providing intelligence on your criminal activities. In exchange for his testimony and agreement to dissolve all illegal operations, he receives immunity. You, however, go to federal prison, where you belong. Marco was dragged away, still screaming threats. The FBI secured the scene. Paramedics rushed in for Meredith. Outside in the cold night air, Rose finally let herself breathe. Aria clung to her with desperate strength. Meredith sat in the ambulance, oxygen mask on her face but conscious and stable. Vincent stood nearby, talking to Agent Morrison in low tones. Mommy, Aria looked up. Are we safe now? Rose knelt down, cupped the girl's face in her hands. Yes, baby, we're safe. Marco's gone. He can't hurt us anymore. He's going to prison for a very long time. Promise. I promise. The FBI arrested him. The police have him. The courts will make sure he stays locked up. That's how justice works. Catherine appeared. She'd been waiting at the command center. She gathered Aria into her arms. Come, Piccola, let's get you checked by the doctors. Make sure you're okay. Aria went, but she looked back at Rose every few steps, making sure she was still there. Vincent finished with Morrison, came to Rose, pulled her into his arms. You disarmed him, he said. His voice was rough. You could have been killed. So could you. And Aria needs her father. She needs her mother too. They held each other as emergency lights painted the night red and blue, as paramedics loaded Meredith into an ambulance, as FBI agents catalogued evidence and processed the scene. It's over, Rose said. Really over. The illegal operations, yes. Marco's arrested. The FBI is satisfied. Now we build something new, something legitimate, something safe. Rose pulled back, looked at him. And us. Us. Vincent's hand found hers. That's just beginning. 3 days later, after the FBI had finished their interviews and the media had stopped camping outside the mansion and Meredith had been cleared by doctors, Vincent asked Ross to meet him on the rooftop. It was evening. Philadelphia spread out below them. City lights were just starting to come on. The sky was that particular shade of purple that only happened in autumn. Ross found him standing by the railing, hands in his pockets, looking out at the skyline. Aria's asleep, Ross said. Finally. She wanted 3 stories and 4 songs. Girls' negotiating skills are dangerous. Vincent smiled, but didn't turn. She gets that from both her mothers. Rose moved to stand beside him, their shoulders touched. Comfortable, easy. I need to tell you something, Vincent said. Okay. I was nothing before you, just going through motions, running an empire I didn't care about, raising a daughter who was slowly disappearing, existing but not living. He turned to face her fully. Then you ran into gunfire for a child you didn't know, and everything changed. Vincent, let me finish. He took her hands. You gave me back my daughter. You made me remember what it means to care about something more than power or money or legacy. You showed me that family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about choice, about staying when things get hard, about choosing each other. Rose's eyes stung. Where is this going? Vincent reached into his pocket, pulled out a small box, opened it. Inside was a ring. Not ostentatious, not massive. Just a simple band with a single diamond that caught the dying light and threw it back in rainbow fractals. I am not good at this, Vincent said. His voice was rough. I have done it before and it feels like betraying Maria to do it again. But I think she'd understand. I think she'd want Arya to have a mother, want me to have a partner, want us to have the family we're becoming. He dropped to one knee. Rosalind Thorne, you saved my daughter. You saved me. You showed us both that it's possible to build something good from broken pieces. Will you marry me? Will you be Arya's mother legally? Will you build this family with us? Not because of danger or obligation, but because you choose us, because you choose this life, because we choose each other. Rose looked at this man kneeling before her, this dangerous man who'd shown her gentleness, this powerful man who'd given her partnership, this wounded man who'd let her see his scars. Yes, she said. The word came out broken. Beautiful. God, yes. I choose you. I choose Arya. I choose this family. I choose all of it. Vincent stood, slipped the ring on her finger, kissed her like she was air and he'd been drowning. When they broke apart, they were both crying, both laughing, both holding on. I have one condition, Rose said. Anything. I'm keeping my name Thorne. Arya can be Arya Thorne Castellano if she wants, but I'm not losing the last piece of my parents. Done. And I want to go back to school, finish my nursing degree, use my training for something more than CPR in warehouses. Whatever you want. And I want a small wedding, just family, nothing big. Vincent pulled her close. Just family sounds perfect. Behind them, they heard a small gasp. They turned to find Arya standing in the doorway. Catherine was behind her smiling. Are you and Daddy getting married? Arya asked. Her eyes were huge, hopeful. Rose held out her hand. Arya ran to her. Rose swept her up. Yes, baby, we're getting married. Is that okay with you? Is that okay? Is that okay? Arya's voice rose with excitement. That means you're my mommy, forever. That means you can't leave. That means we're a real family. Vincent wrapped his arms around both of them. His girls, his family. Forever, he murmured. All of us. 6 months later, the garden of the Castellano mansion was transformed, not into something grand or expensive, but into something intimate, beautiful, real. White chairs arranged in rows, an arch covered in flowers, afternoon sunlight filtering through trees. Rose stood in the guest house looking at herself in the mirror. The dress was simple, white, tea-length, nothing elaborate. This was hers, chosen by her, perfect. Meredith stood behind her, healthy, glowing, 6 months post-transplant, and she looked like herself again, better than herself. You look beautiful, Meredith said softly. I look terrified. That too. Meredith's hand found Rose's shoulder. But you're choosing him anyway. That's what love is, right? Being terrified and doing it anyway. There was a knock at the door. Catherine entered with Arya. The girl looked like a princess. White dress, flowers in her hair, a basket of petals in her hands. Mommy, you look like a queen, Arya breathed. Rose's eyes filled. You look pretty magical yourself, baby. Are you ready? Catherine asked. Vincent's waiting, and between you and me, I've never seen my brother nervous before. It's actually quite entertaining. Rose took a deep breath, looked at the 3 women who'd become her family. Her sister, her sister-in-law, her daughter. Let's go get married. The ceremony was short. Perfect. The officiant was a family friend. The guests were limited to Catherine Vincent's associates who would transition to legitimate business, Meredith and a handful of Arya's friends from school who giggled through the entire thing. Rose walked down the makeshift aisle with Meredith on one side and Arya on the other, both of them holding her hands, both of them smiling. Vincent stood at the altar in a dark suit. His eyes never left Rose's face, and the expression there took her breath away. Love, pure and uncomplicated and absolute. The vows were traditional, simple. But when Vincent said, "I do," his voice carried the weight of every promise he'd ever made, every wall he'd torn down, every piece of himself he'd given to this family they were building. And when Rose said, "I do," she meant forever. Not the conditional forever she thought love was, but the real kind, the kind that chose to stay even when things got hard. The officiant smiled. "By the power vested in me by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride." Vincent pulled Rose close, kissed her like they were the only two people in the world. Arya cheered, the guests applauded, and somewhere in the middle of all that noise and joy, Rose felt at peace. The reception was held in the garden, food and music and laughter. Arya danced with everyone. Meredith gave a toast that had everyone crying and laughing. Catherine hugged Rose and whispered, "Welcome to the family." Officially. As the sun set, Vincent pulled Rose aside. "I have something to tell you," Rose said. "I have something to tell you too," Vincent countered. "You first." Vincent took her hands. "I finalized everything today. Castellano Enterprises is completely legitimate. Every illegal operation dissolved. Every questionable business sold or shut down. I'm just a businessman now. Boring, safe, normal." Rose smiled. "You'll never be normal. Is that a problem?" "Not even a little bit." She took a breath. "My turn. I have news too. The nursing program accepted you, I know. Catherine told me." "Not that." Rose's hand found her stomach. "I'm pregnant." Vincent froze, stared. "You're pregnant?" "About 8 weeks. Found out 3 days ago. Was waiting for the right moment to tell you." Vincent's hands came up to cup her face. "A baby. A baby." He kissed her, deeply, thoroughly. When he pulled back, there were tears on his cheeks. "Another child," he whispered. "Another chance. We did it right with Arya. We did it right together." They stood in the garden as the party continued, as string lights glowed overhead and music drifted on evening air, as their family celebrated the beginning of something new. 2 years later, the Castellano Thorne household was beautiful chaos. Sunday dinner had become tradition. The dining room table extended to accommodate everyone. Vincent at one end, Rose at the other. Arya now 6 in the middle. Baby Marcus, 14 months, in his high chair, making a glorious mess of his pasta. Meredith, now married to the doctor she'd met during recovery, laughing at something Catherine said. "Aunt Mare, watch this." Arya held up a drawing. "I made a picture of our whole family." The drawing showed stick figures. A tall man labeled Daddy. A woman labeled Mommy. A girl with curls labeled Me. A baby labeled Marcus. And off to the side, another woman with angel wings labeled First Mommy Watching from Heaven. Rose's throat tightened. Arya had started talking about Maria 6 months ago. Not with sadness, just with acceptance. Understanding that she'd had 2 mothers. One who gave her life. One who taught her how to live it. "It's beautiful, baby," Rose said. Marcus banged his spoon against his tray. His first word had been Arya. His second was Mama. He was loud and messy and perfect. Vincent caught Rose's eye across the table. Smiled. That smile that was just for her. The one that said "I love you" without needing words. After dinner, after dishes, and Marcus's nap and Arya playing in the garden, Rose found herself in the study with Vincent. He pulled her into his lap. She went willingly. This had become their routine. Stolen moments throughout the day. Reminders that they were partners, lovers, friends. "Meredith's baby is due next month," Rose said. "I know, I'm paying for everything." "Vincent, she's family. Let me do this." Rose kissed him. "Thank you." "For what?" "For this life, this family, this home." Vincent's arms tightened around her. "You gave it to me. I was dead before you, just existing. you brought me back. Through the window, they could see Arya teaching Marcos how to walk. The baby wobbled on uncertain legs. Arya held his hands, patient, encouraging. She's going to be amazing, Vincent observed. She already is. They sat in comfortable silence, watching their children, planning their future, building their life. Roz thought about the woman she'd been 2 years ago, working 3 jobs, drowning in debt, feeling invisible. That woman would never have believed this was possible. This happiness, this family, this love. But she'd run toward danger instead of away from it. She'd chosen a child over safety. She'd chosen to stay when leaving was easier. And those choices had given her everything. "What are you thinking?" Vincent asked. Ross turned in his lap, looked at this man who'd become her partner, her love. "I'm thinking about the day I met you, the shooting, the chaos, Arya calling me mommy in that alley, and I'm thinking that I'd do it all again, every hard moment, every scary choice, every sacrifice, because it led me here." Vincent kissed her, slow, deep, a promise that this was forever. Outside, Arya's laughter rang through the garden. Marcus squealed with delight. Catherine called out something in Italian. Meredith's voice joined the chorus. This was home. Not the mansion or the money or the security, but this. The noise and the love and the messy, beautiful chaos of a family, choosing each other every single day. Roz had been a waitress, invisible, forgotten, drowning. Now she was a mother, a wife, a nursing student, a woman who'd found her place by running toward danger instead of away from it. Now she was home, and home she'd learned wasn't something you found. It was something you built, with courage, with love, with the willingness to choose hard things because they were worth it. She'd chosen Arya in that moment of chaos, chosen Vincent when trust was terrifying, chosen this family when safety would have been easier, and they'd chosen her right back, every single day.